In 2004, Sal Khan, then a hedge fund manager, started tutoring one of his cousins when she needed extra help with math. He started recording YouTube videos of his tutorials that he then turned into an interactive global education platform called Khan Academy. Khan is now pushing the boundaries of education even further. His book, Brave New Words, explores how artificial intelligence will transform learning. I sat down with Sal Khan to talk about Khan Academy and his vision for the future of education. I had the great pleasure and honor of interviewing you back in 2011. I was just starting my career at NBC News, and you were just getting Khan Academy off the ground. How did you take it to a place where you have hundreds of millions of users all around the world?
So you probably caught me 4 or 5 months. We were above a Chinese tea shop in downtown Mountain View. At the time, our goal was to cover all of math from pre-K through the core of college. Now our goal is to cover all of academic learning from pre-K through the core of college. We've been working with school districts. We're now in 50 languages. There's 50+ efficacy studies on what we're doing. Hundreds of thousands of people donate to us. We're still primarily philanthropically supported, but yeah, it's come a long way.
What does that mean to you to know that you are quite literally impacting children all around the world? And full disclosure, including my daughter, who's 4 years old, who uses Khan Academy to help her learn.
I pinch myself all the time. I don't want to jinx it, but I tell my wife all the time, like, I wouldn't switch places with anyone. It's fun to work on intellectually, to be able to tackle this problem. When I was a kid, and every kid probably thinks about, how do you tackle the problems of the world? And I always used to wonder, well, if you peel the onion, it all does boil down to education. And now we get letters. Even back in 2011, I was getting letters from people all over the world. My wife and I just met a young woman from Afghanistan who used, when the Taliban took over Kabul, she couldn't go to school. She used Khan Academy as her school, and she's a freshman at MIT. And so when we hear stories of people like her, I remember 5, 6 years ago, I met a young man who was in prison for 15 or 16 years, and his mother gave him transcripts of Khan Academy while he was in prison. And when he got out, he was most excited at age 32 of using Khan Academy. And then he took the SAT and he did so well, he was able to transfer to Stanford as a junior. And that's where I met him. I was giving a guest lecture at Stanford, and I said, any questions? And this 32 or 33-year-old raises his hand and he starts crying. And when things like that, it feels like you're living in a science fiction book.
You talk about the importance of personalized education. Why is it so important that it's personalized and you say really a one-on-one experience in many ways?
If you go back about 2,300 years, you would see Aristotle tutoring Alexander the Great, or who would be later called Alexander the Great. And for most of human history, that was the gold standard of education. You had a personal tutor or sometimes a team of tutors, but most people didn't get that. You had to be a prince. You had to be a member of nobility. And about 200-300 years ago, we had this very utopian idea, mass public education. But we had to compromise. We couldn't afford to give everyone a personal tutor. So we batch students together in groups of 25, 30, 35. We start moving them together. And that's the system we have today. And it's done hugely positive things. Literacy rates have gone through the roof. Things like algebra used to be considered esoteric. Now we expect everyone to learn it. But we also know that a lot of people fall behind. So what personalization allows you in that class of 20 or 30, or if you're learning by yourself, to get a little bit more of that attention, speed up, slow down, dig deep when you need it.
You developed something called conmigo, the word clearly derived from the Spanish conmigo, which means with me, and it's like a personalized AI tutor. Where did you get the idea for this, and how does it enhance what you are trying to do overall with Khan Academy?
This was almost exactly 3 years ago. I got an email from Sam Altman and Greg Brockman at OpenAI, and this was just a reminder for folks. This was 6 months before ChatGPT came out. I remember that first night that we had access, and I prompted, "You're a Socratic tutor." We don't do this now, but at that time I said, "You're the Robin Williams character from Dead Poet Society, and tutor me." And it did it. Not perfectly, but it did it. And that was in those early days. And so that's when our imagination started to say, hey, why couldn't we use this, not by itself, but in conjunction with teacher tools, in conjunction with videos, in conjunction with the software exercises, to get that much closer to what Alexander the Great had with Aristotle.
Well, in your book, Brave New Words, which is about the future of AI in education, you talk about Khan Academy given early access by ChatGPT. You also write that you had initial fears about it, that this would somehow create a generation of cheaters. But then you ultimately came around and came to the conclusion that you now have, which is that there are real benefits. What do you say, though, to parents and to teachers who are concerned that AI will lead to more cheating?
Yes, when we got access, the first thing I tried to do, I tried to get it to cheat, and it did cheat. We're like, oh no, this is going to open up a Pandora's box. And it's not just cheating. It would hallucinate. It would make up facts, and they still can sometimes make up facts. And I started off the chapter before even getting into AI saying, well, what was the state of cheating before ChatGPT?
It existed.
It existed, and it existed actually pretty blatantly in a lot of places. And the opportunity here is, we have something called Writing Coach on Conmigo. And what that does is a teacher can assign through the AI, and the AI won't do it for the student, but with the student. It'll act as an ethical writing coach. They'll go through brainstorming, they'll do outlining, it'll do draft, give some feedback. And when the student submits the essay through the AI, now the teacher just doesn't get the final output like our teachers got when we were young. The teacher gets the whole process. It's like being able to talk to the tutor. How long did this take, Sal? Did he work on it? And the AI can actually notify the teacher, hey, this paragraph right here, we didn't work on it. It just showed up. And it looks a little different than Sal's other writing. Maybe you want to look into it. And that's the way that you can really police these things. But it's not just about policing it. It's also about supporting the students better.
You are a father of 3. I have 2 children, and I know one of the concerns that I have about AI is that my kids will become reliant on AI for writing, for thinking about complex problems, for math. What do you say to parents like me who have that concern that AI will make it harder for their kids to do independent and tough thinking on their own?
I think, AI is a technology, it's a tool. And I always try to point out to folks, the tools themselves are neutral. They can be positive or negative. Fire, which is probably the first tool that we learned to harness as a species. You can destroy, burn, but you can also keep warm, prepare food. Same thing with AI. It's going to amplify your intent. So yes, if your children are using it to cheat, if your children are using it to cut corners, to kind of check out, that's not good. That's not a healthy thing. But if they're using it to go deeper into a conversation, to answer their questions, it's actually a really powerful skill. We're seeing that in schools. The kids that know how to ask questions, they're off to the races with AI. But a lot of kids, they haven't been able to build that muscle yet, and this is hopefully helping them build that. And the teachers say, yes, those same students are often not going to raise their hand and ask a question. They're not articulating what they need, and so this might be a good outlet for them. So you want your children or anyone's children to be really thoughtful about how to use these tools. Make sure that they're not using it to amplify their laziness, but they're using it to amplify their creativity, to amplify their they're brainstorming with it, they're digging deeper, they're accelerating their learning. And if they're doing things like that, it can be very positive.
I wonder what you think about the future of education. When you think about a classroom 10, 20 years from now, what does it look like in your mind?
What I would like to see, and this is what we're building forward, is if we're going to a classroom in 10 or 20 years, at first you'll say, well, this is just a great classroom. The kids are talking to each other, the teacher is walking around, sitting next to a student, saying, hey, that was a great job. I really like how you did that. Kids look really engaged. It will look like an exceptional classroom today. But when you start paying closer attention, you'll realize that the teacher and the student have much more support to do that really engaging experience than they've ever had before. Maybe the teacher has something whispering into their ear saying, hey, go talk to Kristen. She's really engaged today. She's really excited about today's topic. Go give her some encouragement. She could really value that. And why don't you go now talk to breakout group number 5? They're having a little bit of a conflict. I think they need you. And then that night, that teacher is able to co-create with the AI an even more engaging lesson based on what the students have said or done. And the AI can say, hey, yesterday's lesson went well. The kids really enjoyed it. I talked to them about it. but a lot of them were still confused about the main idea of a paragraph. So why don't we reteach that tomorrow in this way? So the teacher always feels like they're really supported, and the students never feel stuck. And when they come to class, they don't feel like it's a class where they just have to sit still with their finger on their lip, that they can, it's play. They get to talk to each other, move around. Now we can also imagine augmented reality and virtual reality, but I don't think that's actually the meat of it. I actually think it's unlocking the human-to-human connection by taking out a lot of the administrative planning and support tasks.
Do you think that we are getting smarter as a country, as a world community?
For someone who is engaged with their learning, who is curious, this is the most exciting time to be alive. There's no ceiling to, especially now with artificial intelligence and everything else that's happening. You know, you're going to see 10-year-olds learn quantum physics, and they're going to be the people who push the frontiers. At the same time, we know that these same technologies can be used to make very addictive things. Social media, people are already, I mean, there are companies already building AI friends, AI girlfriends and boyfriends. You're going to have AI entertainment that is very, very immersive. And I'm excited about some of that. But if it gets too addictive, these games and this entertainment, then yeah, you could see this divide of the people who are using the tools to accelerate their own potential and the people who are kind of in like a opium haze of you know, I mean, you're already seeing that in places in East Asia. Unfortunately, a lot of young men are so addicted to video games that they're not even getting out, forming connections. So yeah, I worry about that. But whenever I think about that, I think about, well, maybe there's ways of using the same technology to put guardrails. You know, right now on a computer, every parent worries what their kids are doing. We worry about it at home. There's very blunt instruments where you can protect from certain sites. I hope AI can observe and be on the parents and the teacher side and say, hey, that article's not appropriate for you. Or you played this video game for half an hour. Why don't you go do a little bit of Khan Academy? Or even better, why don't you go run outside right now? And if it can do that, if it can report to the parent, like, hey, why don't you go walk over and get them to play outside? In fact, you should go for a walk too, because you've been on your phone too long too.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.